Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our quarterly community Zoom call, and we do appreciate you all joining. Whenever we put these calls together, we like to offer as much value as possible to either give you insight into what we're doing in the community, what we're doing more broadly across the world, anything new that's coming up that we think you should be aware of. But more importantly, highlighting some of the great strides that our community are making in their careers. And we have got so many examples. I mean, we only pick one or two that come through on these calls, but quite honestly, as this community grows more and more across the world, we're seeing so many examples where people have accelerated their careers from more junior roles into more senior roles and into senior CISO roles as well. And we've got two examples today where we'll be highlighting, cyber leaders on the rise, which is our standard format, but we'll also talk about others as well. So let's just quickly look at the agenda for today. So I'm just going to give a quick update just on some of the kind of achievements, some of the updates that's happening within the Cyber Leadership Institute. We're then going to have our standard cyber leaders on the rise, and we're going to have both Krishna and Elizabeth talking about their careers and some of their highlights, and probably some of the challenges as well, by the way. There's not always highlights. Quite often there's challenges to be addressed before the highlights hit. And then we're going to have a technical session from Phil, our CEO, so he's going to be talking about some of the powerful strategies to elevate your thought leadership game. We're going to talk about some the toolkits as well. It's not often that we get an opportunity to talk about things just beyond our programs and courses, but the toolkits are kind of an underused resource, I think, that you can use in your own everyday roles that you do. So we'll talk about some of those new toolkits, and there's a new resource library under development as well. So there's hundreds of toolkits in there, and if you've not had a look at those, then certainly have a look at those in more detail. And then we'll just end the call by just basically any Q&A that you've got, and that's often quite a lively session. So we look forward to you engaging, asking questions of us, and see where we get on that as well. Okay, let's just kick off. So first thing from me, I mean, we've talked a lot about how we're expanding globally, and it seems every time we do one of these community calls, we've expanded to at least another 5 or 10 countries around the world. So now we're in over 80 countries around the world. So a truly global organization. And I think for an organization that was co-founded in Australia, that's quite an achievement, because it's not a natural growth trajectory for an organization in Australia to expand so far across the world. You expect that of US-based companies, but for the Cyber Leadership Institute to do that is quite an achievement, and it's something that we're extremely proud of. And the reason that we've been able to expand is because we've been able to attract the attention of many of you who are on this call today. So we thank you for your participation and helping us grow globally around the world. Alumni continue to, do some incredible things, and a special shout out here to Vanessa and Grant, who have both now secured global CISO roles, which is a fantastic achievement. And like I said at the start of the call, these are just two examples, but we've got many examples across the world who have now expanded into more senior roles. And in fact, we're just doing some analysis across many people who've gone through our programs to show where they started in their careers and where they are today. And even just doing some quick analysis, and we haven't finished that work, we can see that there are, tens, even 20, 30s of maybe even up to 100 people who've now gone on to do much more expanded roles within their either technical or cybersecurity or even risk roles as well. So we're going to highlight some of those and show you in some kind of reporting just how many people have gone on to increase and accelerate their careers. We've got 2 new cyber leadership domain courses. So Leading in Crisis Communications is a new one that's under development, and Public Speaking with Confidence. In fact, the Public Speaking with Confidence, I think, is pretty close to being completed. Both of these courses definitely needed in today's environment. We always talk about the ability to communicate with influence and impact, and both of these courses certainly allow us to do that, to be much better leaders. So look out for those. They're going to be dropping soon. Obviously, they're going to be included in our enterprise customers. So for anybody who is an enterprise customer, these just become part of that portfolio. But if you're not an enterprise customer, and an enterprise customer means somebody who's essentially signed up to either an unlimited seat, so basically everybody in your organization, or something like 5 or 10 seats where you get discounts, will get these included as well. So look out for those. They're coming along. We're talking about toolkits as well. We're going to be having a bit of a spotlight on that later. You should just look out for these because these are regularly updated on our platform. So do look out for those toolkits. And then we're continuing to expand our own team. So as we grow globally and expand our portfolio, and the speed at which we want to respond to our customers, we've now expanded with the addition of a new social media manager, and our operations team, which is largely based in Philippines, is continuing to grow as well. And we're just in the process of hiring our new head of sales, enterprise sales. And in fact, we're hoping that person will be starting about middle of this month, actually. So congratulations if those people have joined, if they're on this call today as well. But this is something to celebrate as well. And finally, just some additional services. You've probably seen these anyway because we've been talking about these on the platform for some time. But there's a masterclass, Becoming a Cybersecurity Trailblazer, something that I kicked off. That's a one-day masterclass session. We did one a few months ago, and we've got another one coming up later in the year, so please look out for that. And we've got an ongoing personal branding program that Phil runs as well, so have a look out for that as well. If you want to find out more about those, by the way, the best place to find them is you go onto our website, click on the services highlighted tab at the top, and you'll see the drop down of those 2 courses, two programs as well on there. Okay, so we're going to go on to our Cyber Leaders on the Rise. So we're going to talk, first of all, to Krishna. So I'll hand over, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning from Sydney. I am Krishna, and I head up the security operations for one of the New South Wales state government agencies. First of all, thank you to Phil, Darren, and Jan for having me here today. It's an honor and privilege to be here with the great community of CLI. I'll not go through the slide bits, but I think it's truly a full circle moment for me because you see, I wasn't always comfortable speaking like this as a cyber leader. I always had the experience, had the track record, but I didn't feel always like I belonged in this kind of room or this kind of, virtual stage. So today I want to share a story, not of success, but of rebuilding. And it's not from scratch, but from experience. Because sometimes the biggest growth comes from when you willingly let go of what looks like progress to make room for what actually matters. And I know we're all logging in from different cities, different time zones, and likely juggling more than one tab on your browsers. So I'll start with a simple question. Have you ever taken a leap in life where even you weren't sure that you would land on your feet? Because I have. And that leap completely reshaped how I see leadership. So to tell you the story quickly, that a few years ago, probably more than a decade ago, I left a secure, respected job in my home country, which is India. One where I led global technology teams, managed high stakes delivery, had a clear career trajectory. And I walked away from it. I moved to Australia. I made the decision to move to Australia. It's new country, no guarantees, no jobs lined up. Uh, to a lot of people, that sounded foolish. And I got asked questions like, why would you leave such a stable career? Why start again when you're already so far ahead? And I didn't have perfect answers back then. I just had a feeling that I needed something more deeper. And I was prepared, or at least I thought I was prepared. But settling in was much, much harder than I expected. And I remember those first few months when I landed here very, very clearly. I wasn't feeling like the leader I was anymore. I was this new guy in town. I had to apply for jobs that I once hired for. Um, I took a role far more junior where I had been, and I didn't even have a proper desk at first in my first job in Australia. So that was something interesting. And there were moments in silence after rejections, when the doubts crept in and it made me think: Did I make a mistake? Am I as capable as I thought I was? Have I set myself back 10 years? And that voice of doubt, it's loud when you feel alone. And in cybersecurity, where we are often expected to be very stoic, precise, and always in control, vulnerability doesn't always have a space. I wasn't broken. I was just in the middle of something new. And that the shift in the mindset didn't come with a dramatic aha moment. It came slowly and quietly by showing up regularly, consistently, contributing where I could, learning again. And one day it sort of finally hit me because I read a lot. So it was one of the things which I read. And it's a saying from Wayne Dwyer. And it said, if you change the way you look at things, things you look at will change. And that hit me real hard. And that one realization changed everything because I began approaching each day not as someone who had been set back, but as someone with the resilience and humility to grow again. And with that mindset shift, momentum started to build. Along the journey, I also came across Cyber Leadership Institute. I've gone through the Cyber Leadership Program, which is the flagship program, and the Cyber Strategy and Transformation Program as well. At first, I thought, sure, another course, another certification. But what I found was something I didn't even realize I was missing. The institute here wasn't just about frameworks and policies, though they matter. I think it was more about learning about how to lead when no one has the answers. It was about how to speak the language of the boardroom, not just SOC. And to be honest, where else would you have the privilege to spend time with industry leaders such as Phil, Darren, and Jan? And perhaps the most importantly, obviously, it connected me with a community of peers. And it's pretty visible on this call now. We are almost 64 participants here from across the globe. And we are all navigating through the same leadership questions like I was. Because sometimes what you need is not just another acronym, it's just someone who says, I've been there too. I've seen this. I can help you with it. I also completed the personal branding coaching for cyber leaders with Phil last year, and it completely reframed how I saw my own story as well. So often we think of branding as logos and marketing and visibility, but I think Phil helped me realize that personal branding is actually about alignment. It's about who you are, what you stand for, and how you show up consistently in your teams, in your meetings, in your industry. And that pushed me to own my story, to share my perspective, and to realize that authenticity is a strength, not a soft skill. The more I leaned into my voice, the more doors started to open. Not because I was louder, it's just purely because I was more clearer and I knew the intent behind it. So, what did all of this sort of taught me overall? The three key lessons which I learned from all this whole journey in the last decade or so. One, hard roads build real leaders. There's no shortcut to becoming the kind of leader who can stay calm during chaos. And I think in cybersecurity, we all know that that's a key skill to have, and you have to earn that. through discomfort, through failure, through rising again. The growth doesn't come in promotions. It could come in moments no one says. Lesson number two was you are your own benchmark. When I first arrived here, I spent way too much time comparing to colleagues, to my old self, to what I should have been. But eventually, I realized that the only comparison that matters is to the person I was yesterday. And ask yourself that, am I leading with more clarity than last year? Am I showing you with more authenticity than before? If the answer is yes, trust me, you're growing. That's my view. The last but not the least lesson I learned is the future isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build. And again, I'll probably quote another um, quote from Peter Drucker, who says the best way to predict the future is to create it. And we do that every day, not just through strategy and technologies and digital transformations and so on and so forth, but through choices we make, the risks we take, and the people we lift along the way. So if you're on this call today, and if you're feeling stuck or uncertain, or like you're rebuilding something that feels way too far away, let me tell you, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're just in the middle of becoming. And that's exactly where leadership begins. And to the Cyber Leadership Institute, thank you. Thank you to Phil, Darren, and Jan again, not just for teaching the skills, but for nurturing the mindset, for helping people like me not just get back up, but move forward with purpose. And to all of you, thank you for listening. Keep showing up, keep building, and trust that even the slow days are moving you forward, because trust me, starting over isn't a setback, it's a strategy. Thank you for your time.
That's great. Thank you, Krishna. That was very well articulated, and I love the inclusion of quotes. I think that's makes it all the more powerful as well, because we can all relate to many of those quotes. Really appreciate that, and thanks for sharing your story. Okay, up next we have Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, very good. So I'll let you take it away.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for inviting me to share on the call today. It was really an honor to be asked. So in putting this slide together, I was advised just to give some highlights. So I wanted to just point out the most important thing I want to share is you're never too old to start a new dream. So I was a single stay-at-home mom of 5 boys. And while I had a career earlier in my life, I spent most of my 30s into my 40s home with these boys. And when they were old enough, I decided I wanted to have something for myself in a career. So I didn't go to college until I was 45 years old. I started college. And I did all the things that I had to do to get my foot in the door, because no one was going to pay an old lady with no skills to work on their computer. So I worked for free as an intern just to get skills and experience. And that company then hired me on as a technician after I got some experience. And I did a lot of basic computer repair work for a while, and was able to get promoted into a role of a manager. And then as I was going through school and working full time, I fell in love with cybersecurity, and then went after a job and was hired on with state government in 2022, just as an entry-level security technician. But I continued to take in all the information I could get, whether it was at work or in school. I continued to go to school full time to get my bachelor's degree while I was working, and did well in state government and was promoted several times after I was there, and then took an opportunity to move into the private sector. And at that time, right around the time that I was offered the job, I realized that I needed more. So that's when I got involved. I actually heard about the Cyber Leadership Program on LinkedIn. So I checked it out and said, I think this is something I need to do. So I went through the cyber leadership program, and when I started my job that I currently have, I took all the things that I learned in the cyber leadership program and put them into action. Even though I'm not the CISO of our company, I did all the things, and it has worked magnificently, and I have been able to increase the security posture of our company, build and lead a SOC, and be very successful in my role because of the foundation I got through the cyber leadership program. And additionally, went through the personal branding course with Phil and Krishna last year, and it was magnificent. It opened up so many opportunities for me, first in my mind, and I realized that there were things that I could do that I was scared to do. And one of those was become vulnerable and tell my story. I didn't really like to tell people anything about my past because I didn't want anybody to use it against me and say, well, here's this old lady who really hasn't been in the industry that long. And that fear of telling the story kept me from opening up. And so then after the program, after the personal branding course, I took a vacation and had an incredible experience and realized that I had been just running and running and running between work, school, certifications, and always trying to catch up with the people who were my age. I felt like I was 30 years behind, and I was trying to make up for it in 2 or 3 years, and I really missed a lot of family time. And so when our group got our personal branding class got back together, I told the story of what actually happened last year when my mom had passed away, and I had been working remotely from her house, not fully present for her because I felt that it was so important that I was effective at my job. And when I was on vacation, I realized what a mistake I had made and how much I'd been missing. So with the encouragement of the group and Phil, I went on to submit a presentation to a conference in St. Louis, Missouri, and they accepted my talk, and I gave that yesterday and told the story about what happened and what happens to our brains when we're always on, always getting pinged by our phones and constantly connected to the world without taking any time to set the phone down, get off the computer, and just be present with our loved ones. And the presentation was so well received. I don't know if there was anyone in the room who wasn't crying, because everyone can relate with being so busy that they miss out on the most important things in life. So I'm so grateful for having been introduced to the Cyber Leadership Institute and how the whole journey has, where it has taken me and really helped me with a lot of my internal dialogue and belief in myself and ability to become vulnerable and share my story to help others, because ultimately that is the impact that I want to leave, is how can I help others. It really has nothing to do with how can I be the most successful at my job. That's important, but how can I help someone else along the way? So I'm so grateful. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity, and that's all I've got.
Fantastic. Thank you. Really appreciate that, Elizabeth.
Impressive.
Yeah, I mean, there's two great examples of not only people who are now accelerating their careers, but have a different mindset of giving back. And this is the important part, I think, as leaders, as we grow in this community. It's becoming more conscious, more self-aware, because not only do we improve ourselves as leaders, but that has an impact on the teams that we lead, and they then become that way as well in the future. And I think in an age of AI, this empathetic, conscious leadership that both of our speakers are demonstrating here today is what we need more of. And it's going to be the key differentiator, I believe, in the next 5-10 years, are those leaders that can demonstrate exactly what we're hearing on the call today. So congratulations to both, and really inspiring stories. Well, great. Well, thanks to both of our speakers. So look, We're now going to move on to the next part of our agenda. So Phil's just going to be running through some of the powerful strategies to elevate your thought leadership game. So I'll hand it over to Phil.
Thanks, Darren. Very two difficult acts to follow, I must say. You know, when people lead with such inspiring stories, then you have to move into a technical session. I think you've made my life very difficult, but thanks for your amazing journeys and stories. So really appreciate that. So let's get straight into it. But before I share what I think are some of the top 5 recommendations for people who want to sharpen their personal brands, again, I will lead with a personal story. So as I have shared before, one of my most career-defining moments came in the summer of 2017 when I was invited to my first ever CISO interview. The stakes were quite high for 3 reasons. Number one, I had just been made redundant from my cybersecurity analyst role, and I had never held a cyber leadership position before. Secondly, as I've shared before again, it is very difficult to become something that you do not see. You know, there wasn't anyone who looked like me in the Australian corporate sector who was a CISO, hailing from my African background. So the imposter syndrome again lifted its ugly head. And I was also going head to head with dozens of highly accomplished Australian CISOs. But I showed up because, like I said, I didn't have much options. You know, I had 2 young kids to feed and a host of matters to attend to back in my home country in Zimbabwe. And I had no job. My role had been made redundant. So one of our mutual friends with Jan forwarded me this role and said, there's a wealth management firm that is looking for a CISO. Would you be interested? So I put my hand up, and to my surprise, I was invited to the interview. So I had to play, you know, the cards that were given to me. I didn't have a lot of things, but I had my thought leadership. By that time, I was already starting to write and getting published at international level by ISACA. I had 2 articles, one centering on cloud security and risk management, and one around artificial intelligence, which later on became ISACA's Global Article of the Year back in 2017. So my strategy was very simple. I was meeting 2 executives, the Chief Risk Officer and the Chief Operating Officer. So I printed 2 sets of my thought leadership pieces. You know, they had been published by ISACA. They looked so beautiful, immaculate. And I put them in 2 folders. And I found an opportunity to talk about what differentiated me in the interview. But when I left the scene, I handed them my thought leadership articles. And I must say, without an iota of doubt, it is my thought leadership, not my technical certifications, not my experience, because I didn't have any, that set me apart. I was interviewed at 3 p.m. 5 p.m. I got a call from my good friend Peter Quigley, who was negotiating on my behalf, and said, you have been hired and they're already working on your offer. You know, I flew to America, looked into my Gmail, and found this beautiful offer in PDF saying, we are hiring you as our head of cybersecurity. So from that time, it became clear as day that the days of competing with chronological resumes, you know, endless sets, and just saying what everyone else was saying were gone. Thought leadership for me was the last thing. It was the last thing that could set people apart. So with that, I just wanted to share some of the recommendations that I have based on my lived experiences and also helping fellow professionals getting published internationally. So number one is the most powerful brands are ruthlessly specific. They do one thing and do it very well. And that's something, unfortunately, that I learned with a lot of pain, because when I started myself, you know, I was writing about everything. I wrote about blockchain. I wrote about Internet of Things, machine learning, weaponized drones. That until I realized that I couldn't be great at everything. By trying to be all things to all people, I would end up appealing to nobody. So the whole idea here is you need to spend a little bit of time in carving out a niche within a niche. And basically what you need to do is to find the convergence of things that you are passionate about, a subject that you know a lot about, and also something that the market is willing to pay a premium for. That's exactly the balance that's required for you to sustain a strong personal brand. The reason being, I'll share with you, I have had friends who have got stellar personal brands on LinkedIn. They write articles that go viral, but the stuff that they are focusing on, no one is willing to pay a premium for. So you need to ask yourself that question to say, how can I unless you've got stakes of money stashed somewhere, which unfortunately for many professionals, the reality is much closer to earth. So what you need to do is to create that balance where you find your passion, something that the market dearly needs, and also something that you know a lot about. Then you start writing about it. The second recommendation that I have is you need to be bold and write pieces that dismantle mainstream perspectives and offer bold and fresh perspectives. Obviously taking that contrarian view will ignite critical thinking within your target audience, also sparks debate when you post articles that are going against the norm, and differentiates you from the masses and cements your credibility in the industry as a critical thinker. So instead of writing something that everyone is talking about, how artificial intelligence is going to wipe humanity, how cybersecurity teams are underfunded, those tired topics, it's better for you to move into critical thinking. And I'll give you an example. I would say maybe a year ago, I published an article in Forbes, which was entitled 3 Common Ways Cybersecurity Teams Waste Money and What to Do About It. That was obviously controversial because if you go on LinkedIn, a lot of cybersecurity teams complain that their budgets are underfunded and they don't get the attention of the board of directors. What I was doing now was to use my personal experience to dismantle that way of thinking. But the most important thing is I was not just whining about the problems. I said what to do about it. And that's exactly what takes me to my next point. You must shun, vague generalizations. I see this all the time. People write white papers. What people are keen on is how can you help them understand their critical pain points, but most importantly, cost effectively address their pain points. We all know that cybersecurity teams are underfunded. We know that people are fatigued. People are working too hard. What really matters is the solution, how to. So when you start sharing your lived experiences and case studies and marshalling that with concrete evidence, that is exactly what your audience is looking for. One thing that I learned very early reading a book, which I recommend by William Zinsser, which is called On Writing Well, is the easiest thing that your reader can do is to stop reading. Especially today when, there's so much articles getting, the attention span is getting short. So the idea is to lead with a powerful promise. Help people address their pain points. I'll give you a simple example. Darren Yan and myself here, our mission is very simple. We want to help people. We've been in cybersecurity 10 to 20 years, very deep technical bone, but they're failing to break what we call the technical ceiling. So you pick a problem that people are struggling with, but then you offer a rock solid solution. Now, the challenge that I get when people submit their articles to me to review is they go for 1.5 pages talking and whining about problem. Cut straight to the chase. Make a bold promise from the start, like what I did here with my, powerful strategies to sharpen your thought leadership game. Instead of going and say why people don't get published, get straight and offer them the solution. Then the second last recommendation that I just wanted to share is a lot of professionals that I work with, they are held back from their potential by the myth that they need to write something new. They need to come up with 100% fresh ideas. What I learned again earlier on is there is nothing new under the sun. Great writers, especially in non-fictional writing, which we specialize in, they're just good researchers. People complain every time about the writer's block until I read an article by one of the most respected copywriters saying what people actually refer to as the writer's block is called the lazy research syndrome. The point is very simple here. For me to write 100 words, it means I need to read maybe 10,000 words. That's why I spend a lot of time reading, mostly outside of my domain. I have got paid subscriptions for the last 10 years in the Harvard Business Review, New York Times, The Wired, the Financial Times, because that's where I can get fresh ideas, then transport them into cybersecurity. Because as you can tell, the cyber leadership domain that we deal with is fairly new. So for me to be able to provide fresh perspectives and actionable insight, it means I need to research a lot. The last thing that I wanted to share is when you write your pieces, please use everyday language. Excessive jargon, advanced persistent threats, zero trust, 0 days, cryptographic backdoors. It makes the writer feel sophisticated and educated, but it makes you sound pretentious and annoys the reader. Obviously, there's an exception. If you are writing to highly technical people, then technical jargon is permissive. But the other side as well that I see, which is very important, is don't underestimate the intelligence of the reader. Don't come across as patronizing by telling them what they already know. Every time I get an article that spends half a page explaining who the threat actors are, the lone hackers, cyber criminal against national states, I just press Control-Shift-Delete. Why? Because an average reader already knows about this. If it was 10 years ago, that would be different. But anyway, those are some of the practical strategies that I thought you could use in your own self, because I see a lot of professionals, they now realize that thought leadership game is the last frontier. It's something that's going to set you apart, amplify your industry impact, and multiply your earnings power, but they don't know how to do it. So what is my last call to action is a lot of people struggle to get published internationally. But the game has changed for Cyber Leadership Institute members, because if you write a compelling article, send it to Darren Yan and myself, we can actually publish it via our Cyber Leadership Institute blog site. So we are looking for people who can actively contribute, because if you look into this call, there's 70 people here. There is so much experience and insights, and we've got the platform for you to do it. So if you are keen to publish something, to write a playbook or a blog, please feel free to reach out to Darren Yan or myself, and we will help you through the journey. So that's all I wanted to share. Thank you very much, Darren.
Great, thank you, Phil. Some great tips there, and I think if you look at what Phil has achieved with his career, in an accelerated career, with not the great experience that maybe some of us have had as a backstory, to use thought leadership in that way to elevate your career and even land a role in that example should be helping to inspire everybody who has not necessarily got that experience but looking to elevate themselves quickly into a more senior position. So that's definitely one way that we can achieve that. And just one thing I'd just like to add to what Phil has said, because it's something I've been researching quite a lot these days, and I'm sure many of you are doing the same as well. We haven't mentioned AI, I don't think, but AI is not going to write these amazing articles for you because the authenticity will not come through. And quite honestly, that's the most important thing, as you've heard from Phil. But one of the things that they can really help you with is speeding up the research. And Phil talked about, doing the research and that being a key part of what you're trying to do. So that's one way that AI can certainly help. And for those that have been exploring the tools, two of the tools that I think do a particularly good job of that is Claude AI is one, and another one called Perplexity. So two that I think, beyond obviously ChatGPT, I think those are two that I think do particularly well on researching and writing. Okay, let me just move on to our next piece. So I mentioned at the start of the call the toolkits. What I believe probably one of the most underutilized assets within the Cyber Leadership Institute, because we get rave reviews about our flagship programs like the Cyber Leadership Program and the Cyber Strategy and Transformation Program. And the community, quite honestly, is something that everybody loves as well. But I think when you start to have a look at some of these toolkits that are in there, they really are going to become true career accelerators in themselves. And let's remember, when we move roles, either frequently or less frequently, we land in an organization, or even as a consulting, because we've got consultants as well who are part of the Cyber Leadership Institute. To get a quick start, you're going to need some assets that you can depend on, that you know have been tried and tested, built on real thought leadership. And there's lots of those assets in our premium resource library. So if you've not had a look at some of those, then you can even ask if you think there's a particular asset in there, you're not a premium member yet, but you're interested in looking at some of those assets, then we can release a couple of those for you to get an idea. So please reach out to us and ask about some of those thought leadership assets. We've got strategy toolkits, we've got detailed templates, we've got lots of great assets in there, and there's hundreds. And they're being published on a regular basis as well. So some of them are quite fresh. So have a look at those. And for example, you can see here just how some of these are ranking. AI trends is obviously something that was very fresh and new and is now moved down. But even things like building a cybersecurity compliance program has moved up. So there's metrics in there. There's how to build actionable roadmaps. And it's not just cybersecurity. We've got things in there for technologists. We've got there for data leaders, people who are, data strategists. We've got toolkits in there for incident managers, risk managers, and obviously cybersecurity leaders as well. So do have a look at those assets. I think they're one of our most underutilized. I think what the number is there, 150 plus assets. So that's quite a lot. We kind of just want to open this up to all of you, really, and an opportunity to ask any questions, but even give your, some of the reflections from yourself, some of the things that you've enjoyed about the Cyber Leadership Institute, maybe some opportunities to give some feedback about how we might improve something, but just any questions as well. So you've got Phil, Jan, and myself who can answer any of your questions, but I'm also going to open this up to Krishna and Elizabeth as well to join our panel of people who can answer any of your questions. And in fact, if you've got any comments that you'd like to make on what Krishna or Elizabeth talked about, we'd love to hear that as well, because I'm sure they'd love to hear your thoughts on the stories that they've told. So I'm going to open this up. So you just literally, no need to put your hand up. You can just come off mute and just jump in with any of your thoughts. So I'll open this up, and don't be shy.
I can go first. This is Saad Sayed. I'm from New Jersey.
Go ahead.
Great history and the life lessons from Phil, Krishna, and Elizabeth. Very, very inspiring. Thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. Kind of give you a capability from a leadership perspective that you are kind of positioning yourself in that model, in the role. So thank you for that. My question to you is, I signed up for this CLI program. I have yet to find out the actual process. I don't necessarily see the details in terms of, I see the June 23rd is the first week of the session, but what happens before that, if I can gain access to the content, the library, what does the process look like? And I think that's where I'm missing some of the information, which is not either available or may not necessarily be available now and soon be released. So I'd love to get some insights there so I can better plan accordingly.
Yeah, so look, let me just tell you, there's a operations team, and they're on the call as well now. So what I'll make sure they do, because there's quite often there's a lot of emails and communications that you get sent for onboarding, both on the platform and to your email as well. So I'll get the team to follow up and make sure. But what you should expect to see is you'll be added to a very specific space on the Cyber Leadership Hub, which is specific to your cohort. So that obviously is now being set up on the platform. So if you haven't already been invited, it's because that specific space for the cohort is being set up. Once you're on that cohort, you'll be then added with everybody else who's on that cohort, which is started in June, as you've just mentioned. But you also should have got access to all the premium assets on the platform itself. Can I just ask, Sad, have you actually got access to the general platform
I do.
right now?
Yeah, I actually
okay.
do have access to that premium site. I can see the questions and answers, community events. I don't necessarily see the premium assets because it's asking me to become a premium member. So I'm not sure if I'm missing something or it's just not propagated.
We'll get the team to follow up with you, Saad, but basically there's a specific link that you have to click, which automatically gives you access to all those resources that would have been sent in an email. It may have just gone missing in your inbox or in your spam folder or somewhere. But I'll get the team, Katrina, the team is on the call anyway, so they'll follow up with you directly after the call and make sure that's all sorted out. We do have some time still before the call starts, so there's nothing you need to do before then except make sure you get the access.
Great, thanks, Jan.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Can you hear me? Oh,
yeah,
all right, yeah. Okay, this is Tejo from Virginia, the United States. So I want to thank you guys, Phil, Sean, and Darren. I've been following you guys, and I'm also an alumni of CLI. So to start with, I want to thank you for the book that you guys have published, the Cyber Leadership Imperative. It's a very valuable text, and I recommended it to some other colleagues as well. Very valuable. So anybody here that have not really gotten a copy of that book, I will strongly recommend the book to you guys. And I believe Darren can also see on my LinkedIn where I promoted this book because it's very, very valuable. I reference it all the time whenever I'm talking. So that said, I'm just wondering if the toolkits or the resources in the premium section, when you guys are going to add more of AI stuff, because it's fast, being adopted across the globe right now. So, and it is an expectation that every cyber leader needs to, scale up the game in this area. I'm looking at how you guys can help us in getting some resources for the AI strategy and the governance, and what are the metrics that we can also use in our AI ecosystem, because it's still in the early adoption and everybody's still struggling to just, wrap their heads around it. However, it's not something that we just want to joke with. So I rely so much on some of the resources I got from the CLI. So I'm just wondering if you guys are really working towards that to get us some resources around the AI enablement as per the cyber leader. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look, there is a space on the Cyber Leadership Hub specifically for AI assets. So have a look on there. So that's a community space as well. But what I would encourage everybody to do, if there isn't something in the premium resource library or in those kind of specialized working spaces, just ask the question. Because if it's something that you're specifically looking for, it's quite often the case that somebody in the community has already done this in some way or shape or form or other. So just ask the question. And in fact, I would encourage everybody who's on this call or in the broader Cyber Leadership Institute is use that question and answers section just to ask for those things that you want. And if we haven't got them, we'll find a way of either getting them from the community or we'll produce them ourselves. It's really important that we're able to address all of your needs. But I know there are quite a lot of AI assets in the resource library. I don't know, Jan, if you wanted to comment if there's anything that you're aware of or anything specific that we might be able to do in that space.
Yeah, it's obviously a fast-moving field. So there are a few AI resources, and also there's been a few questions where people have asked about specific AI-related topics, and other members in the community have shared some of their draft resources with them. We and our research partner that we get a lot of our resources from obviously has AI as very high on the research priority list. So watch the space. There will definitely be more AI-related resources coming out. But as you know, it takes a bit of time to get resources done, peer-reviewed, etc., before they're in a position that they can be issued as a final document. But in the meantime, we might have some drafts available that we could share if you have a specific short-term need. The field is developing very fast, and the risks are obviously increasing by the day, so it's top of mind for everyone. And it's sometimes a bit hard for the sort of formal resource development process to keep up with that. But it's definitely coming, and it's definitely on the agenda.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think this space in particular, because of its pace and that it's moving at, getting those assets in place is probably going to take a bit longer than probably you'll need it. So I would just suggest that you join the workspace on the Cyber Leadership Hub itself and just ask questions and let the community help give some of those answers. They won't be properly curated, but quite honestly, if we use our kind of collective brain, if you like, to find these resources and help one another, we're going to be able to move much more quickly in that space. So that's what I would encourage you to do, specifically in AI anyway. Any other comments or questions from anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
So, hi, this is Diana. I'm joining from Germany, just past midnight here. Very brilliant presentations. My question goes to Phil on the last point, especially where you said about going deep when writing, because sometimes if I'm writing or giving a presentation in Kenya, I have to go deep, even when I'm doing it in my mother tongue, versus when I'm in a cybersecurity audience. But still, I cannot assume that everybody in the audience knows what I'm talking about. For example, if it's threat modeling, whether I need to go deep or just state the facts. So how do you balance, especially when you're writing LinkedIn articles or on Forbes or any other global audiences, on the depth that you can go in? Thank you.
No, good question. And I would say the first thing, especially when you're starting to write, is to actually you need to go broad, because that process itself will naturally deselect areas where you shouldn't play in. So it will be unfair for me to just tell someone. Obviously, if you got coaching and stuff, it helps you narrow down much quicker. But for me, the process was I attempted so many things until I zeroed into what I do now, which is helping people achieve their leadership potential. So that's number one. The second bit is in writing, we got this powerful concept, which I got early on, which is called murder your darlings, which means, when you are a thought leader, there's always a temptation to give out more. So when I'm writing, say, for an article for Forbes, the system forces me to write not more than 1,000 words. So which means that they have got a choice to say, these are the top 10 strategies within 1,000 words, or these are the top 3. So my recommendation is it's way better to target 1 or 2 strategies, peel the nut and go down to the heart of the matter, rather than try to spread yourself thin. You got only 1,000 words to play with. So it's much better for me to give genuine deep insight rather than go broader. But with the process itself, you try a few things, naturally deselect, and then you zero into your niche within a niche.
Thank you. That's well understood. Thank you, Phil.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Diana. We've got time for one more comment, question, or...
Can I go one question, Darren?
Yeah, go ahead, Krishna.
It's more probably a question for you specifically, Darren, because I think I missed out completely on the one-day session which you had in Sydney probably a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. When's the next one?
Oh, was this you talking about my talk, or are you talking about the masterclass?
The masterclass.
All right, the masterclass. So that was an online call that I did, actually. So I ran it on a Friday. We did it over, I think, 4 hours over the day. So there's another one running in November. So just have a look out for that. And there's a space on the hub specifically for the masterclass. So there's lots of different playbooks on there that you can use for things like video recording. There's a bit about entrepreneurship, how to start a new venture. There's a little bit about on personal branding, but as it relates to more digital, so things like video recording and how to set up a YouTube channel, those sorts of things. So just have a look out for that. The next one is starting in November, but you'll find that through services and click on the website and under the coaching space.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great stuff. Okay, look, well, we've reached the top of the hour, and I know that I don't want to go over, so we'll close the call down now. Really appreciate everybody for joining, and please look forward to engaging in that conversation on the Cyber Leadership Hub. It's a great resource to get people collectively to respond and help one another. So please use that and look out for our next community call. Thanks everybody for joining, and thanks to our speakers today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.